This is the USA Emergency Broadcast Network, your source for reliable disaster preparedness information.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this station, its management, sponsors, or other hosts. If you have any comments or suggestions about this program, please contact us at radio@usaebn.org. That's radio@usaebn.org.
Welcome to the Zeta Report here on USA Emergency Broadcasting Network. We are live here, joined by Nancy Leader from ZetaTalk.com. Nancy, are you there?
I am here. I'm looking forward. This is going to be fun. Fire above and fire below. Let me quickly read our disclaimer. In partnership with USAEBN, Zeta Talk and the Zeta Report will be discussing the challenges of living on a planet beset with change, rising seas, increasing earthquakes and volcanic activity, weather gone wild, and the worry of what to do in a worst-case scenario. We will inject Zeta Talk prophecy on what is coming next and advice on readiness plans and safe locations. Whenever Zeta Talk is quoted, please remember that prophecy is not fact. It is opinion. It only becomes fact when it happens. The Zetas are remarkably accurate but have been wrong on occasion, so please bear that in mind. For more information on this subject, visit ZetaTalk.com or the Zeta Report on YouTube. Any questions from the chat or issues raised in the chat will be addressed toward the end of the hour after the main feature has been presented. A book titled Fire Above, Fire Below is about a dying dragon beneath a city, his hot breath causing magma to rise, setting the city on fire. I quote briefly from the short story. The bubbling tarmac on the lower level of the car park below the office block was the first sign, but no one noticed it because there was no one parked there at midnight on a Friday night. The second sign was smoke curling and twisting through the expansion joints of the concrete pillars. No one noticed this either because the car park attendant was 4 levels up and fast asleep in his booth. End of the quote. Now, does this not sound like the approach of Nibiru? The signs keep increasing, but no one talks about it. Nibiru is described as a dragon in the book of Revelations, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 7 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. The ancient Babylonians likewise described Nibiru as a dragon, picturing him as the alchemical dragon Azoth with his 2 suns and a moon. The drawing is very revealing, as indeed we have 2 suns at present, Sol and Nibiru, and in the drawing the moon is turning his face away. The moon does have a more eccentric orbit due to Nibiru's presence, and thus the face is indeed turned these past few years. Mother Shipton likewise refers to Nibiru as a dragon, and I quote, "The mountains will begin to roar, and earthquakes split the plain to shore. Not every soul on earth will die as the dragon's tail goes sweeping by." It keeps coming up. It's such a good analogy, and you know the point about the 7 horns and the 7 heads and 10 horns, etc. There's a string of moon swirls known as the string of pearls that clings very close to Nibiru, and they can be seen, and they're seen repeatedly by people naked eye. So it may be that that's what the Bible is talking about. It seems very apt. Okay, fireballs. That's if the dragon is coming in, we certainly are getting fireballs from above, as in bolides and fireballs screaming across the skies. The increase is explosive, and as much as the establishment would like to lie about it, statistics don't lie. Cell phone videos are taken and posted on the Internet. On February 20th in Vancouver, on February 25th in Chile, on February 26th in Germany. This is all very recent, because we've been having these fireballs screaming in since 2004. On February 28th in Wisconsin, where the American Meteor Society got over 80 reports from the public. On March 3rd and again on March 6th in the Ural Mountains. And on March 7th in Washington State. Reportedly a fireball as big as a minivan. All this in just a 2-week period. Not all this traffic is ignored by the establishment. On March 14th, an asteroid the size of the Golden Gate Bridge was to pass Earth. Quoting RT, measuring up to 1,542 feet in diameter, the rock is traveling through space at 14,093 miles per hour. Because it will come so close to the Earth and is big enough to cause significant damage if it were to strike, the Minor Planet Center designated the asteroid as potentially hazardous. End of the quote. Charts show an explosive increase. When the debris in the tail of Nibiru first started raining down on us, this would be in the media everywhere. Then it was only in local media, then not reported at all. Quoting Scott.net, routinely described in the press as a once-in-a-lifetime event, the presence of repeated observations of meteor fireballs over the same geographic area, sometimes just months apart, has forced a shift in the narrative toward emphasizing the harmless nature of meteors exploding overhead. On February 23rd, a meteor heading for the Ural Mountains was shot down at Chelyabinsk. This was a large fireball and would have caused damage, but the Russians were on top of the situation and met it with a missile, and it fractured midair. One can even see the missile rising up to meet the bolide in the photos. Quoting RT, Russia's Ural Mountains has been rocked by a meteorite explosion in the stratosphere. The impact wave damaged several buildings and blew out thousands of windows in frigid winter weather. Hundreds are seeking medical attention for minor injuries. The ministry reported that 297 buildings were damaged and another 450 buildings were left without gas. Because facilities in the city had been damaged, witnesses said the explosion was so loud that it seemed like an earthquake, and thunder had struck at the same time, and that there were huge trails of smoke across the sky. Others reported seeing burning objects fall from the sky to Earth. The threat of asteroids striking Earth has long been an obsession in the UK and US governments. In the US, it is known as near-Earth asteroids. They are tracked and labeled. Jonathan Tate of SpaceGuard UK debated the Zetas in 2001 on the Astro Usenet about this issue, insisting that defense techniques like nuking an asteroid would work. Does this sound like the movie Deep Impact? Per the Zetas, given that space is free of gravity draws, a nuke on the surface of an asteroid would only push it to the side, and then it would rebound. Then the asteroid would recover its trajectory, heading toward the nearest gravity draw, i.e. Earth. So other than go underground into caves and bunkers then, which are likely to collapse during the pole shift, what to do? The practical Zetas have come up with some excellent advice. Stand against a cliff or rock outcropping, as debris will sling in at an angle and either go overhead or hit the cliff and bounce away. It will not drop straight down onto your head. Fire from above can also occur if one is close to a volcano, as history reports blankets of fire falling during the hour of the pole shift. This is a product of greasy elements in the tail of Nibiru and the heat from the volcano. Ipuwer, written by the Egyptians, closely matches the book of Exodus in the Bible. Quoting the Egyptian papyrus Ipuwer, gates, columns, and walls are consumed by fire. The sky is in confusion. The Kolbrin, based on Egyptian records, also records a strange flowing fire. I quote from the Kolbrin. In the glow of the destroyer, the earth is filled with redness. The face of the land was battered and devastated by the hail of stones, which smashed down all that stood in the path of the torrent. They swept down in hot showers, and strange flowing fire ran along the ground in their wake. Volcanoes run along the west coast of the Americas, and Central America is rift with them. Thus, these stories of a blanket of fire dropping from the sky were recorded there also. Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Mayan, states, people were drowned in a sticky substance raining from the sky, and then there was a great din of fire above their heads. Velikovsky has an explanation for why such a blanket of fire formed during a pole shift hour, when this does not happen today. For the Zetas, two factors are involved. The greasy tail of Nibiru is thick at that time, wafting over the earth. And second, the hurricane-force winds have stripped away some of the atmosphere. Thus, oxygen at the higher altitudes is missing. Thus, the fire occurs close to the ground. Quoting Velikovsky in his book, Worlds in Collision. The tails of comets are composed mainly of carbon and hydrogen gases. Lacking oxygen, they do not burn in flight, but the inflammable gases passing through an atmosphere containing oxygen will be set on fire, binding all the oxygen available at the moment. The descent of a sticky fluid which came earthward and blazed with heavy smoke is recalled in the oral and written traditions of the inhabitants of both hemispheres. Just recently, in March, the monster Persona of Nibiru was captured on film in great detail by Alberto, the venerable Nibiru photographer in Italy, who has been at this for almost 20 years. A monster persona is not the real size of the planet, but caused by light rays that go out into space in all directions and then bend back toward a gravity sink. This makes the object look larger than it is, and we know how easily light bends. Just step into some water and look at your feet, and they seem to be disconnected from your knee. If the FAA cam is pointing toward the west at dusk, then the dark twin has been captured in the past as a monster. So this is nothing new. But what is new is that as the sun goes down, the FAA weather cams are capturing now both Nibiru and the dark twin in tandem. Features on the dark twin are now visible, including a massive crater. Nibiru's features show cloud cover, but the dark twin has no atmosphere as it has no water. A looming Venus has also been captured in the past, but is now showing up more often as a monster persona. In some captures, one can even see the lumps in the cloud cover over the volcanoes of Venus. These lumps match the photos taken as a heat signature by man's satellite. Thus, all of these planets can be identified by their features. They are coming closer, being pushed there as Nibiru moves outbound from the sun, coming toward the Earth, and crowding Venus, the Earth, and the dark twin closer together in what is called by the Zetas the cup. In other words, if you stick a stick in the middle of a river, you will notice that the rushing water from the river will flow around it, and there will be a spot in front of the stick where pebbles and nuts and whatever are captured and can't get away because the water keeps rushing and curling back and curling back. That's what's going on around Nibiru. The solar wind comes around Nibiru. It creates an eddy flow right in front of Nibiru, and that includes the Earth, the dark twin, and the Venus, and we're all these little twigs and nuts floating in the eddy flow. So we're being crowded together, and we might have some drama soon, which the Zetas have predicted, certainly for the last weeks. But if we're getting the monster personas and they're looming closer, what next? Fire below is certainly part of the dragon's approach. Volcanoes have been erupting around the globe at an exponential rate. The increase between 2012 and 2017 is dramatic, as maps of active volcanoes during both these times show. Is this hitting the evening news? A single eruption someplace may make the news, but per the Zetas, the establishment avoids the obvious by making everything just a local event. No connecting the dots. And erupting volcanoes does not fit into the global warming lie. They are not erupting because the air is a degree or two warmer. They are erupting because of Nibiru. The increase in volcanic activity has several reasons, one of which is plate movement. The 7 of 10 plate movement that the Zetas long predicted and has been occurring steadily since 2010. When one plate moves, there is a domino effect around the globe. Per World Truth TV, last October, 7 volcanoes in 6 different countries started erupting within hours of each other. Japan, in Mexico, in Guatemala, in Vanuatu, in Italy, in Indonesia, and in Java. It is primarily in regions where subduction of one plate under another are ongoing that a volcanic activity is found. The ring of fire around the Pacific shows this. The Pacific is compressing, the Atlantic widening, as the continents of Pangaea drift apart. Undersea volcanoes, such as in Indonesia, which fuel the El Nino wash heading across the Pacific, do not show up in these maps. Yet they are occurring, and we're having increasing El Ninos too. In areas where one plate is subducting under another, this is prime volcano territory. What the Zetas call the stretch zones are also populated with volcanoes. The crust is being pulled thin by the stretch. The African Rift Zone is a prime example. As the top part of Africa rolls to the east, dropping into the Indian Ocean and tearing the plate border through the center of the Mediterranean, volcanoes in the Mediterranean and the Red Sea and down through the Rift Valley of Africa open up. A plate under tension, such as the North American plate is at the current time, can also find magma activity increasing. This happens recently as the North American plate in 2 spots, the Gulf hotspot and the New England volcano. The New England volcano hit the press last December in articles that warned of an upwelling of magma under, primarily, Vermont. In the opinion of the Zetas, this was due to ripping at the mouth of the St. Lawrence Seaway, which is ripping open gradually due to plate movement. The Gulf hotspot appeared in scientific journals in March. The heat in the center of the Gulf reached 136 degrees and was confirmed via satellite in a buoy at the location. Is a new volcano about to erupt? In the opinion of the Zetas, the crust is thin there due to a meteor impact in the past, and the bowing of the North American plate is pulling this thinner and thinner. Does this show up on maps of Pangaea? In the opinion of the Zetas, it does, as the Gulf is not present in the original Pangaea landmass and forms a nice round circle where it lies today, just where a meteor would plunk down and make a nice round circle. Per the Zetas, plates are not smooth underneath. Like the surface above ground, which has mountains and valleys, the surface below ground is irregular. Thus, magma swirls about, choosing the path of least resistance, moving faster through ravines and being blocked by mountains in a similar manner to the atmosphere above ground. Does the magma have a jet stream as the atmosphere does above? It does indeed, and one that mankind tracks. Notably, after Nibiru arrived in the inner solar system in 2003, the magma jet stream became confused. At least that was the word used by the establishment in their scientific journals in 2004, became confused. The magma jet stream was just showing the irregular daily Earth wobble, a matter the establishment was not ready to admit. So they sometimes make up reasons, or sometimes they just throw their hands up, but mostly they try not to report this stuff at all. But I think we're getting a lot closer to an admission. The Zetas say magma is not homogeneous, so some parts pull toward the sun, are attracted to the sun, thus create the Earth rotation by always pulling toward the sun. Other parts, not so much, so these magma streams clash into each other. This can be shown by the global seismograph patterns after a major earthquake sets the magma worldwide to sloshing. Quoting Zeta Talk, One flow going around under the Earth's middle, as has been the normal rotation flow, and the other continuing to pull toward the sun. These two streams are composed of different magma elements, depending upon how attracted they are to elements in the sun. Those less attracted to the sun elements follow the Earth's rotation, regardless of how it might be tipped. These dual magma streams overlap at certain points and likewise have voids at points. End of the quote from Zeta Talk. So they're saying, in addition to the mountains and different streams and jet streams and all that, there's clumps of magma that want to do this and other clumps that want to do that and have different attractions, or trying to rush away from something or trying to rush towards something, and it's a lot of motion going on down there. What to do if you are a mere human trying to avoid this chaos? The Zetas say that all volcanic activity within the last 10,000 years will become active during the pole shift. They say to be 100 miles from any volcano and upwind. But because volcanic ash is so fertile, agriculture near volcanoes is sought. It is the ash that, as well as flowing lava, that is a danger, as ash in the lungs will turn to concrete. Oh, what an awful thought. And not be able to be coughed up, a horrible death. Thus the need for face masks or a bandana over the mouth or nose. Was Yellowstone due to erupt as a supervolcano? Not per the Zetas, who say it may have been a supervolcano in the distant past, but due to subduction of the plates pushing in from the Pacific. The rock layers over Yellowstone are thick and baffled. By that I mean they go this way and that way and this way. So the magma coming up does zigzag, zigzag, and it gets slowed down. And like Hawaii, just becomes an oozer. So Yellowstone will be, at most, a regular volcano. 100 miles away, you'll be okay. Magma must rise slowly, zig and zag this way through the baffles, and finally emerge. In the opinion of the Zetas, Yellowstone will be just another ordinary volcano. And this is what I prepared to talk about Fire Above, Fire Below. There is so much going on, folks. Visibility has increased. Russia keeps murmuring things that indicate that Nibiru is real, and that's why everybody is saying, don't listen to the Russians. They just want to poison everybody. Don't listen to Trump. He's under the control of Putin. They're just terrified that the truth about Nibiru is going to be, and who is the they that are terrified? The people that are most threatened by this are the very wealthy. They currently have you working your jobs, debt slaves, really, paying your mortgage, making payments on your credit cards, and can't move away from the coast, can't stop paying your mortgage, won't desert your homes, and they can keep milking you of your cash and keep you in your jobs as long as they want, and at the last minute they rush to their bunkers and leave you to say, oh my gosh, I've been paying my mortgage all these years and it's worthless, and I've been on the coast and I'm going to drown, I have to leave, I haven't prepared, I have no seeds, I don't know how to garden, what about chickens and goats, and handheld woodworking tools, and and they can laugh all the way to the bank, or so they think, and they can emerge and they will have all the vitamins and the pharma meds and food or whatever, and create slave camps and say, we'll feed you if you become our slaves, now get out in the field with your hoe and get to it. So this is their plan. They don't want you to know. The wealthy don't want you to know. They've got their bunkers, as we well know. And therefore, they are trying desperately to squelch any talk about Nibiru, any truth, but it's coming out anyway. People are seeing it in the skies. According to the Zetas, better than half of mankind is now chit-chatting with aliens on spaceships or wherever. And it's not just the Zetas, because there's like 1,000 different life forms, most of which are anything but a hominoid. They come in all different shapes and sizes and etc. So they're chatting with contactees, telling them the truth. Why is it that the sun is coming up in the wrong place? Why is the weather so weird? Why are we having severe droughts and then, it won't stop raining? And why do I get the feeling that I'm being lied to? Well, because you are, by the media. So there are people that want to tell you the truth. Trump is one of them. Why did he disdain the Paris Accord? We have to have, global warming is true and it's man-made. No, it's not. If anything, it's the roiling magma from Nibiru, and it's all the volcanoes, right, etc., increasing carbon dioxide. It's certainly not, man-made, although, that could be a factor, but that's not what's going on here. And anyway, global warming was always disputed by scientists. Even the media jams things down your throats and will only let what is called the fake news be proclaimed. So, listen to what comes out of Russia, like the Patriarch Kirill said some months ago. One would have to be blind not to see the evidence. That we are what the Book of Revelations, John in the Book of Revelations called the end times. He said we are in the end times. And their astronauts, etc., or astronomers will talk about Nibiru. They will talk, when there was debris coming in, somebody said, some sort of an asteroid thing. He said, no, I think it was the debris in the tail of Nibiru. And there they are, plunk. He was a meteorologist, I guess. So they're more honest and they don't get punished, and we can expect more truth from Russia. So when people say, don't listen to them, I suggest you do listen to them. So what do you think, Andre?
Well, I know it's hard to cut through the media, I hate to say fake news, because what they're doing is basically just following a script. And then some of this has been coming out too. There's a big hubbub on CNN today and I think Fox too about this Sinclair Broadcasting Group sending out like a disclaimer to all of Sinclair owns a bunch of local TV networks. They don't do national networks, but they own the local TV networks. They have, 600 stations or something, but you can see it on YouTube. All these stations, all the anchors are saying kind of the same thing, talking about how fake news shouldn't be trusted and always have a reliable source, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it's up to the viewer. That's you out there, the listener to this show, is a little bit more awakened, closer to the truth than most of the folks out there. But when you see some of this stuff come out, it's just like the global warming thing I can understand, because that was pushed on such a large agenda by, media, rock stars and movie stars and that sort of thing. But when you get down to when you think about the actual physics of it, the oceans are heating up. The water of the planet is heating up faster than the air. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have varying places on the Earth where some of the ice caps are melting and some are gaining ice, and that proves the wobble as well, but or is more evidence for the wobble, I should say. It doesn't directly prove it, but we've got a lot of evidence out there. And then, the scientists will, all these volcanoes are going off because there's an uptick in earthquakes because the Earth is, is slowing down. What?
Yeah.
What? When did that start? Last year you figured this out?
Yeah. The excuses
are
just laughable.
Nanosecond is what?
Yeah. So what they hope is that the common man who's rushing back and working two jobs probably to make ends meet glances at some headline and says, and doesn't think any further because some scientist said it, that type of thing. But the excuses are ridiculous, and we have an Earth wobble because Antarctica has more ice than the Arctic, which melted, so it's like a top going. Oh, come on! It's insignificant, differences, but they make things up, And then they worried about all the red dust coming in from Nibiru, which it does. There was some orange snow over there in Sochi and Ukraine and in that area, and the people that were up there skiing, taking pictures, and it was all orange, up in the mountain caps. And they did an analysis. They said the iron content was 4 times what it should have been.
There you go.
And that whatever fell on the snow was greasy and foul smelling. Well, that's the tale of Nibiru, and the reason, and the Zeta said long ago,
petroleum-based iron oxide. Right, petroleum-based iron oxide dust falling from the sky. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So NASA a few months ago blew some missiles up over the Atlantic from Cape Canaveral or wherever, and it was puffing out red dust, and some of it was green blue dust. And they said, we want this to go up high in the ionosphere so that we can track the jet stream up there. So if you see red dust up there anywhere, it's from our missiles. It's from our tests. And they must stay awake at night trying to figure out what to do to fool the public. Chemtrailing? Oh, Lord. That's what this is all about. Is to smear the skies so you can't see Nibiru, when it might be optimum at dawn or dusk or wherever. And the wealthy are doing this. It's not the U.S. government. Their wealthy is frantic about this. So,
Nancy, you're up early enough around your parts to see the sunrise quite often, right? Or pretty close to there.
Yes.
Have you noticed recently, chemtrails is not a conspiracy theory anymore. Harvard came out with a study. NASA says they're doing it. They're trying to geoengineer the Earth to prevent global warming. That's a bunch of hooey, all right? That's a bunch of BS. Because if you look at what's going on with the let's call it the spraying, so not to use chemtrails, which has been stolen back by the other side. So geoengineering or spraying, whatever they're doing in the sky to cover up, it looks like. Have you noticed in the morning there's an X or a light high concentration at the 7 to 8 o'clock position offset on the sunrise, and then on the downward slope, the sunset, there's more heavy spraying to the right of the sun, to the lower right at the 4 to 5 o'clock positions. Like, that's what I tell people who don't even believe anything. I'm like, look at a heavy spray day. Look at over there. And they're like, oh, no, that's just... I'm like, okay, that's not normal air traffic. First of all, the airplanes are way too close together and they're crossing. And no, FAA doesn't put up with that. Secondly, that's that X in the sky. That's where you should look. That's where you should be looking on a daily basis, because sometimes they forget to put spraying up there. Or sometimes somebody catches on an FAA webcam, or Alberto catches some awesome stuff.
Yeah. Chances are that's something you're seeing in Madison, and I'm up here 40 miles north.
Yeah.
So but frankly, we've had so much winter cloud cover, and I don't go out and watch the sunrise, but I have no reason to doubt you. Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. Anything they can, to float out fake excuse. But it's not going to work. And what's going to happen when people say, "Wait a minute, Nibiru is real"? Oh, good Lord! Now what?
Yeah.
And then they're terrified.
Well, the anger.
They're afraid. Yeah, they're afraid that demands are going to be made. People will stop paying their bills, etc. They're going to demand to know who was responsible for the cover-up, what the government is going to do to help them, if they have to move away from the coastlines or whatever. They're going to have various people, quote-unquote, experts that are going to come forward and say, now, this is what I'm telling you. Yes, it's real, but don't worry. You don't have to leave your homes. And, well, who are you and where were you in the past telling us? They're going to tell us, they're going to try to shush anything that's a valid voice, like Zeta Talk is a valid voice, accuracy track record. They're going to give you people that are going to claim, that they should be listened to for no reason, just because they say so. So you'll have to be very discerning. Then there are opportunists that are going to emerge, and they're going to say, I have some safe land here. I can set aside an acre. If you send me, empty your 401k and send it to me. That type of thing. And if you ever do go up to claim your acre, you'll find that it's swampland, or there's nothing there, or 25 other people have been sold the same acre. It's going to be a lot of scam artists that will try to take advantage of really frightened people. The best thing to do is to research basic survival information. We have a lot of that on USA IBM. We've been around for 2 years talking about how to make windmills out of car parts, how to get vitamins from bugs and weeds, and yes, you can get all your vitamins, and what kind of protein you get from nature, like duckweed is high protein flour, and if you mix amaranth and corn together, you get the equivalent of red meat in protein, and et cetera, et cetera. It's all there. Pull it down, listen to it, make a few notes, and you get ready, because get your tools, sewing, hand treadle sewing machine, hand tools, basic equipment. Then you don't have to be afraid. And it's very simple. Be 100 miles away from a coastline and 200 feet up. Be 100 miles away from a volcano. And the main thing is you've got to get started in your survival. You can't start gardens and chickens and goats if you've never done this before. There is a learning curve. The best would be if you team up with maybe a small farm inland and go and help them with their chores when you have vacation time with the kids. The kids will love it. Disneyland, forget it. Milking a cow and helping haul in the hay or whatever, that's real. And then, you'll have a place to go. You'll learn about, and you can help that small farm with money if you have it, and you can team up. Be a little resourceful in this regard, but don't go with strangers that advertise on the internet and want to take your money, and you don't know who the heck they are. The Zetas have said your friends and family, people that you already know, are the safest bet, even if you don't like them that much, because they're a known entity, and strangers are not a known entity. So there's a lot of good advice, and if you listen to a few of our broadcasts, you'll pick up the majority of it.
Yeah, I think also that a lot of folks are getting their information more so from social media than the usual, like 10 years ago it would be, or 10 years ago it would have been, a lot from the mass market media, the CNNs, the MSN, and Fox News, that sort of thing. But now with the generationally, with more millennials on the phone more, and the more different apps that are out there with Snapchat and Twitter, that sort of thing, I think folks can dig through the BS a little bit quicker because it gets called out on social media. But on the flip side of that, didn't Facebook just get busted, and Google for that matter? Google and YouTube have been censoring YouTube videos heavily over the last month for many different reasons, and a lot of Nibiru captures have been taken down off of, say, Facebook or YouTube. And so, you have to dig a little bit to get to the truth, but once you know it's there, listen to your gut, listen to your heart. Don't be fooled by, all of these quote-unquote, it's basically propaganda, what they're pushing down your throat on a lot of these, it's even on Comedy Central, too. It's just trying to push it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy guy, but if you listen to your gut a little bit and it sounds wrong, it probably is. So dig a little bit more. The internet's still a free place. You can still look up stuff if Google hasn't, changed their algorithms for different things. But, Zetatalk.com and pullshift.ning.com are great places to find more information about to put the puzzle pieces together, kind of figure out what the breadcrumbs mean, why, not South Africa, but Central Africa, the rift zone is actually separating, and the Nigerian or the transcontinental highway is being ripped apart, and it's major news there because that's the Rift Valley is pulling apart.
That's right.
Yeah,
what's called the African roll. First, we had Indonesia going down with a lot of flooding, and that happened 2011, 12, etc. And then, and then we roll over. South America was falling over to the west and the top part, and we just a million earthquakes all around the Caribbean plate and up and down along the Andes. And meanwhile, now the Africa roll is starting to pick up, and it rolls its top part to the east. And while it does that, it's pulling apart at Gibraltar. when the Saudi plate pushed, in Iraq, at the eastern edge of Iraq, under the mountains of western Iran, that was all because of the African roll shoving. And so what happens during that, as the top part rolls to the east and drops a little, is that the Rift Valley just stares terribly. And now that apparently has really picked up the pace. Yeah, I did see that. And it's always been there, but it's the pace, the increase, and who talks about this? Did you hear this on the evening news? No. There might have been a little link somewhere, but you don't. Isn't that news that a major highway has just been severed like that? You don't get it. It's like go back to shopping. If they don't tell you the news, then it's not happened. Does a tree fall? If it falls in the forest, if it doesn't make a noise, then it didn't fall. That's what the logic is. So I think what we're going to happen eventually, I'm hoping, is that by the time that Nibiru becomes broadly known and people are talking about it, and I don't know if we're going to have people marching in the street holding placards saying, "Tell us the truth," but whatever that takes, that it gets broadly known. And, they try to shut down the Internet. They can't do that because the Internet's used for industry, government, and defense. And it was designed to be like water that just keeps flowing around obstacles. And they can't take that away without just destroying it. You can't. So they won't shut it down. And in the first place, that's a red flag, that you're being silenced. So they try these, but I'm hoping that when it becomes known that in their panic, they won't keep trying to stifle the truth. They will forget about it because it's too late. The cat's out of the bag, And instead, you'll have a lot of this, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll tell you when to panic. We'll feed you. We'll give you a place to stay. Just come to our slave camp number 2, and we'll put, put a chip in you and give you a hoe, and you'll be okay." And we'll shift to that. That's what I'm thinking, But a lot of martial law will be instituted worldwide. There'll be a lot more tight control so we don't have rioting, and people will have to get out and march to their jobs and things and be home, curfews, that type of thing, But what I would like to see, because we already have that in Russia, the Far East, where Putin gives away free land in the Far East to anyone who'll go and set up housekeeping there and homestead, and the like. And China's got their ghost cities inland and to the north side because India is supposed to be the new South Pole and therefore very cold. They're getting set up to move their people, and they already are. Putin already is, So what I would like to see is something, before we have the New Madrid RIP and we have all those cities up and down the Mississippi, in tatters and people homeless, having to be moved maybe to Nebraska, and set up in barracks and told, "Here's your goats and chickens, now pick up a hoe and go," form a community that way. Well, that would be all right, and I assume that this kind of thing is already being planned. But I don't know, so
I hope so.
That we would have that advertised, and we would find that that's happening, and just like with Hurricane Harvey, when it hit Houston, the number of people that came out to help their neighbors, or even not their neighbors, just anybody, it was just a wonderful outpouring of help and affection. I was stunned. Houston was the last place I thought they would come from, compared to like Florida, when they had their hurricanes, it was like rioting and grab what you can.
Yeah, good luck.
Or Puerto Rico, where they sat there with their hands out saying, "Where's mine? Give me more." So Houston is a wonderful example of service to other community efforts. So I'm looking forward to all. We don't know. But it's a transformative period where as much bad stuff comes out, more than that, and good stuff comes out, more than that, and the good stuff wins in the end. Love prevails and expands. So it's interesting. I
did want to mention, too, with just a side note on that Houston flooding, that's going to be more prevalent, too, as the New Madrid progresses forward, that land is going to be inundated. But USA EBN was actually on the ground in Houston. One of the members